Could everyone please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
There are two changes to the agenda on the very end of the agenda. Item 9, there are some dates that were added there for the rescheduled Indigenous Ed Committee meeting and the board retreat, November 13th and 14th. And then in speaking with Mrs. Ray earlier this afternoon, we've added an executive session for the matter of employment of persons or personnel. And that's it.
Okay, then I need a motion to approve the agenda with the changes.
Motion.
Motion by Carrie, second by Meg. Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried.
Barb
And
is on.
Barb, I'm sorry. Barb gave a thumbs up. And item 3 is our recognitions and presentations for Board of Education Week.
So I'll jump in there. Board of Education members, thank you on behalf of all of the Salamanca students, our faculty, our staff, and our community for your tireless efforts for our community. The success that we've had as a district is directly attributable to the conscientious volunteerism of our school board members. We have a few tokens of our appreciation for our board members. The first item in front of you is a large bag from our school administrators, the Salamanca Administrators and Supervisors Association, which includes our principals and directors and assistant principals and assistant directors. We'd like to acknowledge our administrators for sharing their appreciation for our school board members. You also have an assortment of warrior masks in front of you, the latest versions from the district, so that you can have the latest and greatest mask warrior swag as you're walking around town. I believe, Mark, those are student masks and for children. You're muted.
That's correct. Yes, you're on mute. The 2020 pandemic phrase of the year. So those masks are distributed for our student use as well as our staff use, and they come in a variety of sizes. So those just arrived today. So we wanted to make sure that our board members got the first samples of those.
Thank you. And you have somewhere in your bounty of board appreciation items, you have some decorative boutique cookies of thanks and appreciation. I know we all like a good snack every once in a while. So thank you for all that you do. And those are from Mark, Karen, and myself. So thank you very much. And last but not least, we have Christy Osgood, one of our special education teachers at the high school, and also a member of our transportation staff. And Christy has something for you from the transportation staff.
So really quick, this week is also School Bus Safety Week. So this week we have been giving out our school bus drivers t-shirts that I'll demonstrate them, and all the bus drivers got one of these shirts. And we wanted to include board members, so each one of you have them. And we also want to say thank you for supporting us as a transportation permit and the safety committee. So this is something that the safety committee can put together. So thank you very much. We're gonna do pictures tomorrow if anybody wants to come join us. And that's all I have. I have these if you want to pass them out later or do it now, it's up to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Christy, and thank you, members of our Board of Education.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We love gifts. We don't request them, but we do love them. Next, we have our presentation for capital project update from Turner and Hunt.
Good evening, everyone. We do have Michelle on Zoom, and I believe Jake and Jeff are on as well. Once again, we've come to a point where we're here to update you with the progress that's been made. The theme of tonight is going to be a little different than what you've seen in the past. We're going to update Closeout. Julian will go into that, and then we'll go in a little more detail at Vets Park, building by building, field by field, with some of the things that you might not have seen before, some pictures and stuff like that. So without further ado, Closeout update. Julian?
So as far as project closeout right now for phases 1, 2, and 3.1, 3.1 is your high school roof and Seneca parking lot, phase 2 being Prospect, and then phase 1 was the project that included the job we're doing here. Just gave a few snapshots of where we're at with punch list and the work remaining to be completed in each of these buildings to get to the finish line. So phase 1, we had a total of 688 items. We're down to 5 right now, and we're at 99% complete. Phase 3.1, smaller project, a little less items. We had 44 items there, and we only have 2 remaining open. And we actually just got a notification that those are ready for us to inspect, so we can go take a look at those, and we should be pretty close to 100% complete there. Rich, you want to go into phase 2?
Yeah, so right now at Prospect, we had a total of 994 open punch list items. Right now remaining, we have 180, and we're working diligently to close those out, which makes us at 82% complete at the moment.
And some other things here, closeout wise, that are going on behind the scenes. This was a snapshot of what you guys might see in each of your buildings, but we're working diligently behind the scenes to collect all the owner's manuals, the maintenance instructions for all the finishes that are going in, and collecting all the warranties to make sure that you guys have a nice spreadsheet with all the different names and numbers to make the appropriate calls if anything were to unfortunately come up warranty wise.
Michelle, you want to add anything from a financial side?
Yes. So for phase 1 and phase 2, of the 3rd week of September, we sent out reconciliation letters to all the contractors coming to a final contract amount. There are some minor changes that occurred after that. We probably have about 95% of the change orders closed at this point on both, are reviewed and pending approval, final signature at this point on the project.
Any questions from a matrix standpoint with the numbers, the changes that we have? If not, we'll dive into 3.2, which is Vets Park, and some of the stuff that's going on there. A little bit deeper dive in each building.
I'm just going to kind of go picture by picture here. The top left, you got your foul pole set up, removable foul poles. That's a little end piece of your removable outfield fence. If you guys haven't had a chance to see it, that went up towards the end of last week. They wanted to leave it up for people to be able to drive by, take a look, get some shots when Levi gets back over there of that. Pretty awesome setup, and we actually had Rich's crew over there watching the install, learning how to put it up, take it down, so that they're in tune with that. The middle picture here, that's your baseball press box. We got the windows in, some of the exterior paint on the fascia work at the roof line was completed since the last meeting. Just another look here in the top right picture down the outfield baseball fence there. And then thanks Levi for the aerial photos that you continue to put together, but we got the overall snapshot of the completed turf baseball field that was finished since the last board update. Bottom middle, we put up a batting cage as well, just so people could take a look at that product. We had a baseball coach or two over there taking a look at that during the installation process as well. And then just a nice shot from home plate looking out at the outfield fence. The baseball team room building. Now, this is the building that remained in place and we were renovating. So some work that happened since the last update, we got finished paint going in the buildings. We were able to finish the drywall work in the ceilings. Since the top left picture was thrown in here, we actually got the lights that go in the storage area that picture is of there. Top right, exterior paint started happening, makes the building look miles different than what it was before with the red and gray paint that was done last week with the nice weather. The bottom left picture, some of the fascia work was complete. All the holes that you see in there, those are soffit vents that'll be popped in as soon as we get the paint done first, and then those will go in after. And then the bottom right hand photo here, we got the ceiling grid in. We're putting lights in, getting some of the devices and above ceiling work done. And then we'll get the flooring work going in there by November 2nd. Moving to the multi-purpose field and grandstand. So the grandstands have started and progressed nicely since the last meeting. Got the red riser boards that in the bottom right-hand picture, you can really see pop there. In the bottom right-hand picture, you can kind of see the backrests on all the bleachers that are starting to go in. So every bleacher seat there has a backrest. And then just another aerial view of the overall finished center warrior, and the overall color scheme is kind of coming together there since the last meeting. And then on the bottom left, that's just looking back out towards some of the landscaping work that's happening behind the baseball field, prepping for the new fences that go along the property. The multi-purpose team rooms. So top left, ceiling work going in, lights are going in the space. It's all cleaned out. We're going to be starting flooring in the bathroom spaces. It gets an epoxy floor that's going to start on Friday. Bottom left, that's just from the field, kind of looking at the front face of the building. See, there's still some flagging on the top of the building there. We have that up there just for mechanical connections, safety for the workers that are getting up there. That'll come down when the finished coping goes on the perimeter of the building in mid-November. Right-hand side, this is a picture of the team room. We got the exposed ceiling up there. The mechanicals have been painted, ceiling's been painted, and we've since hung lights. Painters are currently working through right now, touching up the walls and cutting back into the ceiling paint that they put on there. So that snapshot does look a little bit different as of today. And into box lacrosse and landscaping. So the box lacrosse field's in the top left. Turf was completed since the last meeting. We started putting in the board system. You might see that some of the boards there in the bottom left are tipped down. We are currently in a holding pattern on the box lacrosse system as we work out some details and potential upgrades with you guys here in the room. Bottom left is some landscaping. We started planting trees behind the football field and the box lacrosse field there. The bottom right, we have the walking trail that's paved. That's about 3/4 of the way complete there. And then in the far area, topsoil has gone in and we started hydro seeding. Some of that grass is actually starting to sprout. And we're working basically from the baseball field out towards Front Avenue with the topsoil and landscaping and tree planting. And that work for the concrete is wrapping up. A little bad weather this week, but they're expected to wrap up the concrete pours for sidewalks middle of next week, and then start prepping for pavement, which will happen the first week of November. Any questions on Betts Park?
Paving for the parking areas, what is the timetable for that?
So we are going to be putting binder down the first week of November. It's a couple-day process, and they're going to pave right through the entire park. The only logistical piece we're working out is the electricians' trailers are sitting in one of the pavement areas, working out some kinks to try to get them shifted kind of during the pavement operation to get binder on the whole thing. Top will be in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And Michelle, thank you. Naming rights? Yes. Do you have that up there? The naming, right? Okay, all right. I have it. It's on okay. Let me just bring it up. 1 second. Okay. Dr. Bueller, would you like to take the naming rights over while or the reopening while we bring that up, if that's okay?
Absolutely. So I'll just give a brief update as far as our school safety and reopening. As most of us know, last week the district shifted Wednesday afternoon from our hybrid and in-person instructional model to the fully e-learning model. I'd like to express my gratitude to our students, to the staff, and to the grown-ups. That shift occurred with very little complication that arose from a possible secondary contact with a positive person. And when I say secondary, it is not one of our employees that were potentially exposed, but they were in contact with someone who was potentially exposed. So we take, and we have said in the past, that we will not open our schools if we cannot do it safely. And this was an example of a concern that arose, specific concern. And then when we coupled that, as we monitor the cases and active cases of COVID-19 in the community and in the county, those numbers were on the increase. So it just made sense for us to switch to the fully remote model of instruction. Since that point in time, we have received negative test results from all those individuals that had questions. So on Sunday, we made the decision to continue with our hybrid model, which is where we're at right now. We anticipate that, as the future progresses and as we begin to see more positive cases in the city of Salamanca and throughout the county, that it may be necessary to do that again. But we're confident that as we do that, we will have the fewest interruptions in instruction as possible. As we talk about instruction, the 5-week grading point has come and gone. And along with that point in time have arisen several concerns over student progress, academic, as well as attendance, as well as simple engagement. While some of our students are flourishing, there's a concerning number of students who are not performing where we would like to see them perform. So as you are aware, last meeting, the Board of Education formed a committee. That committee is overseen by Chad Bartosik. They had their first meeting today. It was well represented by members and grown-ups and teachers across the spectrum of our grades. The next step is for them to put out a survey that will be publicized to all of the Salamanca community, specifically targeting students and the grown-ups. After that, the next phase is actually to engage students so that we can get their feedback so that we can do a better job of meeting their needs. So that is underway, and I anticipate that that committee will be moving quickly. Additionally, as we continue to evaluate our progress, we have, the high school specifically, has made the determination that they're going to bring back 8th grade and seniors who are willing to come back and offer them a hybrid approach. So that will be beginning, we don't have a firm date for that at this point in time. We're just in the process of working with the teachers to establish a schedule that makes sense. We know that at the high school level in particular, with the large number of students or classes that students take, that becomes significantly more difficult to have them on campus because we like to keep our students in the pods or in cohorts. So there's the fewest amount of commingling of students as possible. So we're working with the teachers to come up with a schedule that makes sense for those students who are on campus and at the same time eliminates as much, I'll call it cross-pollination from teacher to student to class as possible. Let's see. How are we doing there, Mr. Bridenstine? That's about all I've got to share, so keep going. Oh, boy.
Question
Oh,
then?
please do.
So you're bringing back 8th and 12th, but What about 9, 10, and 11? Like, is it?
Yep.
Is 8 and 12 more neat? They're needier. I don't want to.
No, that's a good question. Yep.
But why are we focusing on those two grades and not 8, or 9, 10, and 11?
Great question. So the 8th grade was really a little bit easier for us to identify as a grade level that we can bring back because we will be focusing on the 5 with foreign language core areas. And that 8th grade sort of models a little more of a team structure. So we can bring those students back and model the type of instructional system that we have for grades 6 and 7. Once we get into 9th grade, and a full high school schedule is more applicable, it becomes a little more challenging. So right now that 8th grade is going to sort of serve as a model for us to say, okay, how, knowing the constraints that we have with 8th grade, what will 9, 10, and 11 look like? And we have a little bit more control over 8th grade at this point in time, given their courses. They don't have as many electives that are offered to them. So that allows us to begin to expand our instructional model with a smaller and more controlled sample. The seniors, we need to bring their seniors back because this is absolutely critical for them in order to graduate. So that came about more out of a need to have them on campus, particularly those students who have not been as engaged as we like. So with the outcome being graduation, bringing them back on campus was sort of imperative for us. That is not to say that 9th and 10th and 11th grade is not coming soon, but we want to sort of put this in place in a wave, so to speak. We targeted those two, one with 8th grade to, sort of sample the process, 12th grade, because we need to have them on campus and ensure that they meet their graduation requirements. And then once we have success with that, we'll begin to phase 9, 10, and 11 in.
And I got a question. Why are we even considering this when the COVID cases have been rising substantially in our area? And I don't even know if you're aware, but we did lose another community member to COVID this past weekend. Why is this even a topic of conversation right now?
Well, this is coming back from feedback from our community members and from the parents. We're not forcing any one of our students to come back. We know that our students, many of them are not successful and are asking to come back. So what we're simply doing is providing an opportunity for those students and parents and grown-ups who decide that they wish to come back. As I've said in the past, we as a district believe that we are able to provide education in person in a safe manner. It doesn't matter if it's for one person or for 500 people. If we are doing, if we're going to bring it back for 10 people, we believe we can do this in a model and upscale it slowly so that it's safe for all of the people that are on campus. So you have mentioned that we have had an increase in COVID cases here in Cat County, specifically in the southeast corner. The cases in Cat County that are in the southwest corner, which is where we are, that number has gone up by about 6 or 7 total individuals, which at this point in time does not raise too much of a concern for us when we begin to disaggregate where those cases are specifically throughout the county.
I just don't feel comfortable even having a conversation right now. It's enough that we've seen dramatic rises around us. We've had the highest numbers in Cat County and even our surrounding counties ever since this thing started. And we talked about coming into this with a safe and sound approach. One thing that we absolutely cannot do is control COVID. And to start bringing more kids into this building at this time, I don't even feel it's appropriate to have the conversation.
I guess my question back to that would be, we're already bringing them in 2 days. Are we talking about we want to go online completely and not even do 2 days? Because if we're doing 2 days, I've also heard concerns from parents saying, if my kid can go back more, I want him to go back more. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page of, are we saying it's okay for 2 days, but we don't want 4? Or are we saying we don't even want 2 days? You know what I mean?
Well, I think this goes into an evaluation, and potentially the survey that, we've talked about before, and seeing exactly where we stand with this. Now, in the weeks leading up to our opening, we sent out how many surveys? 3?
I
To
believe
gauge,
that's
to
correct.
gauge the level of comfort from our community. And before we'd start having this discussion about bringing kids back, we talked about it a few board meetings ago, doing another survey to see where we stand. And especially in the past week and a half, when we've seen a spike in our area, I think it's more appropriate now than ever to gauge our community's input, their comfort levels.
Hey, looks like they're starting to do another survey. I know that my daughter's teacher sent her on an email to gauge comfort.
Committee
Seneca?
that met today, or is that just,
It was to my personal email, so it's her teacher sent it, must be to all the
okay.
parents.
Carrie's concerns, especially as we're heading into flu season. It's concerning. I do feel for parents, who are obviously concerned about academic performance, and then for younger kiddos, clearly childcare issues and things. But I'm really concerned with the ramping up of things because we're just going to get the onslaught of flu plus COVID. I mean, it is going to explode this winter. That's what all of the public health people are saying. So I share that concern, Carrie.
We need to really, really think about and evaluate what's going on with this. Making a plan is one thing, but actively saying that we're going to be bringing kids back soon, personally, I don't think we're there. And if it does come down to a vote, I will vote no.
I forgot to say too, is if this was just an individual decision of risk, I mean, I get that. But we have people in the community who, are very still rightfully so fearful of COVID. And the more people we have interacting in a high amount, no matter how safe we think it is, just ups the risk of that spreading throughout the community and spreading to those folks who are doing their very best, to stay at home and stay away from people. So we need to be mindful of them as well.
How are we doing with kids that are home, getting on the computer and doing their classes? Are they doing it, or are they just ignoring it?
To that one, I can add that I believe there are 1,953 incomplete courses at the high school alone. So that has been a concern that is causing us to say we need to evaluate what our process is. So what that means is that a student, that's individual student incompletes that were provided at the 5-week point.
Some of these courses that they need to graduate. And if they're not taking it seriously and not taking these classes, I hope they realize what could happen.
Absolutely.
And everything I've heard too is we're having problems with kids completing their courses, getting on the Zooms, everything like that. Education is a very, very big priority. I've been saying it for weeks. Everyone wants to be diligent, but health and safety trumps education every day of the week, every minute of the day. And I don't feel we need to put anybody at risk unnecessarily. Again, we're in no different shape than any other district in the country. And kids are struggling across the country. That's commonplace. But I don't think we need to jump right into bringing more kids back when our cases are rising. We really need to talk about this more.
I just want to make sure what we're asking, because, are we okay with where we're at, or do we feel that we really need to step back from that too and look at complete online until the cases start going down again? Or do we need to do, like you said, Carrie, another survey and get the results before we make that decision? Stay the course and do a couple surveys to figure out where we're at. I mean, or, it is quite a predicament because you want your kids to graduate, especially the seniors. And I know we think we're doing it in a safe way, but I get where the numbers are rising, and it's scary for everybody.
I think they have all the facts, all the information at hand before we even move forward on anything. And again, to say that we're bringing kids back soon, no, that's presumptuous.
I'd
I think
also,
that's a little early.
I'd like to see a survey, like current survey, go out to staff and faculty that is truly confidential to get the feedback, because not only do I have concerns about our larger community, but then also, the folks that are working in our buildings, to see, what their comfort level is and what their concerns are currently.
Are we talking to Dr. Watkins at all from Cattaraugus County Health
Yes.
Department?
Yes, specifically, Mr. Haley has daily, multiple times with the Cat County Department of Health. And there's a constant flow of information that goes back and forth between our district and him as the point of contact and the Department of Health.
Well, maybe he could even come to our little conference we're going to have and talk to us. He could be one of our speakers.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the issues that we have is that we run the gamut. We have parents who are saying, and other adults who want their students in school 5 days a week. And then we have concerns about having students on campus at all. The model that we put in place is one that people can choose. The only option that can't be chosen right now is to have 8th through the 12th graders on campus. Part of our plan that we talked about and put in place in September was that we were going to begin to bring those folks on. If we wish to pause that, we can do that. Mr. Bartosik does have a survey that is going out, I anticipate by this week, Friday, that will be assessing those particular pieces as well. The other piece that's important to realize is that we're not, we will always provide a choice, at least at this point, for our the students and for the adults. At the same time, we do have perhaps a greater responsibility, which is to provide a safe environment regardless of the wishes of the parent or adult.
It's around us. Like, isn't Allegheny going back? Don't they go back every day? So like,
Correct.
they're in the Southwest. So where are they at? Like, are we talking to those districts to find, and like Portville and Olean, to find out what are their models and what are their numbers?
We talk quite regularly with other school district superintendents. I know the principals talk. That is the one thing that is consistently happening, is people are talking and interacting with colleagues. I think you'll find a wide range of menu options that districts are choosing. Some larger suburban districts to our north have all of the elementary kids back 5 days a week for a portion of the day. They're doing well with their structure. Other districts in Allegheny County have the majority of their students back in person, but they're a lot smaller than us. I think it really depends upon both the temperament of the community and their ability to keep everyone safe. It varies widely. And the model that we have right now, we are approaching the point with our elementary students where we're nearing capacity to do it safely, unless we look at how we are instructing, utilizing certified elementary teachers that aren't necessarily directly in the classroom differently to bring more students back into larger spaces. Those are all the conversations that are happening quite regularly at the grade level in the team meetings. They're happening across the district administratively multiple times during the week. And we're really approaching the point of a crossroads as to what happens next. In about 4 weeks, maybe a little bit less, winter athletics are going to happen. And that means we'll have more sports teams inside. And I think that there is going to come a crossroad conversation of, if we're not going to have students in the high school, what impact, if any, does that have on high school winter athletics? Those are all real questions that everybody is worried about. How do we do it safely? Can we do it? Can we provide the level and quality of instruction so our students can meaningfully progress through the curriculum? And I do just want to clarify one thing Mark said with the 1,000 plus incompletes. That's not 1,000 students, that's 1,000 course enrollments. A student who has traditionally had difficulty in school engaging could be enrolled in 7 classes. or could be enrolled in 5 classes in a BOCES classroom. So don't let those numbers skew the conversation. It's not 1,000 students, it's 1,000 separate enrolled courses. That number is still way too high. We do need to have the conversation. And with Mr. Bartozak engaging the community, I think I can safely say that I think we know that this is going to be a very sensitive issue, that there are going to be individuals on both sides of the equation and in the middle that could go either way. So I think I would recommend the best approach is go slow, get the facts, don't force anyone into any category or bucket list of what options they have, and just listen to the community, listen to the facts and the science that we know from Cat County. And Sue, we talk with Dr. Watkins often, especially last week when we had our momentary scare.
Other questions that we want to bring up or no? Are we good? Okay.
All good conversation.
Thank you.
To be continued.
To be continued.
So as Levi's pulling up the naming rights, I would just like to say that's the last time I follow Mark. So what we've been doing over the past several months for the members of the board who were on the personnel committee over this summer while we were simultaneously planning our reopening, we were having a conversation about reopening and renaming of facilities in the district. We have a number of facilities that are coming online, and in research, we have over the past 5 or 6 years, we've occasionally had individuals or community groups say, hey, we should name this after this person, or we should rename this building because of this. In our research, we found that we really don't have a governing policy that talks about naming, dedications, and memorials. We have a small sliver of a policy that talks about scholarships and grants and gifts of that nature, but really we are kind of silent on naming. So we thought that we would have a conversation about what this might look like. As we have new facilities that are coming online, we want to make sure that we have a policy and a guiding document that can help us when these issues and when these buildings and facilities come online. We want the naming to be in alignment with our strategic plan, with our values, and to be widely communicated throughout our community. And I want to make this clear, this last point. The superintendent, if everybody can see me on Zoom, the superintendent is not advocating changing any names or changing any of the designated buildings that we have in our school district at this point in time. This is not a decision that the superintendent has anything other than one opinion on anything. It has to come down in the good policy of a board decision with ample community input. When we look at possible naming concerns, we know that we have a number of facilities coming online, particularly over at Vets Park, but also elements and portions of internal buildings at Seneca, at the high school, and of course over at Prospect that have been substantially renovated and or will be renovated further in the current capital projects, but also future capital projects. Those areas include the athletic fields, the athletic buildings, walking trails, the new library at Prospect, potential transportation facility upgrades, and future capital project needs, both phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, phase 25, whatever happens over the future. The premise is to give this board and future boards a framework to operate under when it comes to our building names and dedications. As I said, there's no current policy. The one that I reference is 5230, which deals with acceptance of gifts and grants, but really doesn't get into naming of facilities. In the past 6 years, there have been 3 requests to rename to dedicate and rename the gymnasium, to dedicate and designate names that are currently not in our arsenal of named facilities for new athletic fields, and a dedication to the library. Those are within the last 5 or 6 years. And without a clear policy, we potentially run the risk of having conflict when a little proactive approach could go a long way to making the community understand that there is a process for this with clearer language. The policy direction that I'm asking for and that we've talked about the personnel committee is to establish clear guidance on developing naming criteria and establishing a clear process when we want to unname something should an individual or should circumstances warrant a change. I've affectionately called this the O.J. Simpson Wall of Fame criteria. We don't want anyone or anything named for someone or something in the community that suddenly is drastically out of favor and out of step with our board expectations and our community expectations. When it comes to naming, there are three separate categories. Naming for individuals is the first. A proposed policy, and again, we're just talking a framework, we're not talking the actual policy yet. A proposed policy would be to name facilities for an individual or individuals who've played a critical role or contributed to society in ways that support the success and well-being of the district. This is for an individual of substance within our school community, the larger school community, the state of New York, the nation, or the United States. For example, John F. Kennedy Middle School. That would be named after an individual of substance that some would argue had a meaningful, lasting impact on our nation. There are others. That's just an example. The second portion to that would be a principal legacy or an individual that provided a key activity or advocacy for something that we as a district hold of value and that it aligns with our values and what we hold near and dear as a community. For example, Pop Warner Fieldhouse. Now, for those who are wondering, we do not have a field house. This is just an example. And Pop Warner was legendary in the area of youth football. That is something that could be in line with future considerations and future concerns. It would be possibly appropriate with community input. And the last would be for an individual, and this is coming from other guidance documents from Erie One BOCES, from other school districts that do have naming and dedication policies, both in New York State and outside of New York State. One in particular, Arlington County Schools in Virginia, has a very comprehensive and detailed plan, but it's a countywide system in Virginia, and they have dozens and dozens and dozens of buildings and fields. So they needed to do this out of necessity. But a consistent theme is an individual is deceased for a period of time. 3, 5, there have been 10. That's our decision as a board when we get into that conversation. I'm not suggesting 3, but that's a number that's out there pretty consistently. So if we decided we wanted to dedicate the new baseball field to the Herman Babe Ruth Field, that is something that in time the board could consider. So in summary, to be named after an individual, they're of substance, they've contributed, and they're generally speaking not still currently alive. Although that could be something that the district could change with community input. The second piece to this for naming is geography or historical relationships. This would be something that's important to us and is regionally located. For example, Seneca Elementary School seems to make sense. Seneca Intermediate School, Prospect Elementary School. It's for a regional approach for something that is a landmark that's somewhat synonymous with us as a community. Again, it has historical reference and geography as well. And the last is kind of a nebulous category of other criteria. Schools and facilities may articulate aspirations of educational themes that we're striving to attain. For example, the Warrior Academy or the STEAM Center of Excellence. The school facility name should consider the diversity of the community that we serve so that it is reaching out in a broad aspect to the entire community. And one element that is perhaps maybe not so subtle, but is important, and then when you think about it, it makes sense. We should avoid duplicating names of other facilities. That doesn't mean that we can't have a Main Street Elementary School or a Salamanca High School, because there are other Salamanca High Schools in Spain. If we have duplicate names, we want to make sure that it's synonymous with our identity as a school district. This will help avoid confusion. It will help us with branding and identity, and that's something that's indicative of what we're looking to do within our community and our school buildings. The last request, there needs to be a process. So someone needs to put something in writing suggesting why a facility should be named or dedicated. That makes sense. That way, we have a clear, articulated example and understanding of why this is important to the community. It could be one person's request, or it could be 500 or 600 people's request. That articulation in writing is important to start the process. If that comes in, once we adopt a policy at a later date, then the board can determine what happens next. But all of the policies indicate that the board should have a committee that will begin this process and start the ball rolling. Once the board appoints a committee, they can do the research, they can find out the information, they can weigh the pros, they can weigh the cons, they can do the research, and then they can make a recommendation to the board. At the end of the day, the school board retains the authority on naming and dedication rights, period. That's up to you. The best practices outline that in advance so that it doesn't become an impulsive, emotional reaction. There are school districts, one to the north of us, that had, I believe, 3 multiple athletic fields come online in a short period of time, and they dedicated it to a person who was still alive that didn't know that and didn't want that honor. And it was kind of a little bit of a black eye. So the process is something that we articulate before we make any decision. That way, then the board can protect itself from complaints, protect itself and its identity and its integrity. And then moving forward, you have a process. The same would apply if an individual or a group wanted to dedicate benches, put memorials in for trees so that it fits in line with our overall development and plan. That's kind of the overview. Timing is important. Making sure that the individual fits with our values and our goals as a district, avoids emotional reactions to something that would happen that may not stand the test of time. And it honors the person that we're considering naming our buildings and facilities for. And lastly, a dedication is something that's somewhat ceremonial and temporary. Memorials are more lasting. There are plaques in the hallway for veterans, and that follows a consistent theme in that section of the area. And I think honoring community members of substance, honoring our location, and honoring what we're trying to instill in our community is something that's important. And that's why having a policy and a procedure and a guiding document, I think, is somewhat important. Ultimately, the board will decide yay or nay on the facilities. Ultimately, the board, through your own actions, can decide we like this part of the policy. We want it to be a 1-year waiting period. We want it to be a 10-year waiting period. We don't want any waiting period. Ultimately, that's your decision. We're just trying to give you some options. I think that's it. Just a quick overview. Any questions?
So when are you going to look for like a subcommittee of the board members to help develop this policy, or is this something you're just going to bring back and we're going to add our own little critiques to it?
It's a little bit of both. We have a draft policy that we've been working on with Erie Wombosi's. Justin Shep, our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, has been helpful with that. TC Ferretto from Erie Wombosi's has been helpful in getting us some other samples. It's a relatively short policy. It's not, pages and pages. It's like most policies. It's simple, short, and to the point, but allows us the guidance and flexibility to make it customized for us through the process.
Okay.
So my recommendation would be to bring that back to the Personnel Committee and then bring it back to the full board. And then if that policy is okay, then it would follow the traditional 3 public readings or viewings on subsequent board meetings.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments, questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next we have public communications. Do we have anybody to speak? No? Anybody from Title VI? No?
Nancy doesn't have anything tonight.
I'm sorry, what?
Nancy said she doesn't have anything tonight.
Okay. Then we can go on to central office message. So Karen, you want to start?
I want to make sure that I can be heard. No, just kidding. I just wanted to let you know, especially the finance committee, that the letter that got sent to the Native American unit helped. They've got some people moving now. I did get some numbers today, but I need to take the time to go through them to determine if it does or does not match what I submitted as far as the request for reimbursement. And then we were also told that it was going to be reduced by 20%. So if and when we get our payments, it'll be only 80%. And I did reach out to the other local districts that are in our situation with the Native contracts for transportation and tuition. And the majority of them are just behind 1 year, but there's a couple that are behind 2, and they've all expressed their frustrations with the lack of assistance from the department.
Their full payments though, because if we're behind more than, if they're only behind one payment and we're behind how many, Karen?
Since 1718.
So we're behind since 1718, at least 3 payments.
Mhm.
If they receive their full payment, how can they turn around and say they're going to take 20% out of our payment? When
It looks like the only one that will be reduced by the 20% is the current year. So we'll see what actually comes to fruition though.
All right.
Your clarification on how they feel like they could do that?
No.
Nothing?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, okay. I was talking to Bob today and I said, well, it's kind of funny that if we had a contract with them where we were paying them, if we decided arbitrarily that we're going to withhold 20%, I think we would probably end up in court. So I'm not sure.
So are we still going to end up in court?
Well, maybe, I don't know.
If I can just jump in here with regard to that for Karen, I have talked to a few of the statewide agencies. We had a meeting yesterday with small city schools. That is on the agenda. We have a commissioners roundtable coming up very soon. That is on the agenda. And I've also reached out to the State Superintendent's Association for some assistance on that. I did speak at least 2 times today and once yesterday with the Native American Policy Unit. Karen is right. I don't know how they can do that other than that's what they do. So I did suggest that we would be engaging both all means and manner at our disposal, which includes reaching out to our elected officials, Senator Borrello, Assemblyman Gillio, Senators Reed and Senators Schumer and Gillibrand, and Representative Reed. Although it's not a federal issue, it is an issue of funding, and the amount that the district is owed by New York State from 3 years ago is absolutely inappropriate to have a delay that long. There is a normal processing with dealing with Albany, but this is more than double that length of time, and it's just simply unacceptable. And I would think in a time where we're concerned about children who need services, and particularly in districts like Salamanca with a high population of Native American students, I would think that the Native American Policy Unit would be jumping up and down, raising all kinds of objections to a district the size of Salamanca with the population and the numbers of students that it has being almost 3 years behind in payments. That's just unacceptable. That was my conversation with them today. That'll be my conversation with the commissioner next week when we have our meeting. And that'll be my conversation after that with the elected officials to perhaps bring some attention to this.
Anything else, Karen? Anyone have any questions for Karen?
What is the percentage of Native American students versus the non?
What are we, 45%?
Well, I thought they were more.
We're about 42%, 41.7 if I recall.
There's 42.7% Native.
students.
I thought it was higher, actually.
Count on that though, because I know the survey that I filled out for my daughter had multiple categories for race, ethnicity, and one was multiple. So
Correct.
do we know who the multiple are in that?
We do.
Okay.
So the process for registration, there's a federal requirement and then a state requirement to identify. And then once a student identifies as anything as particularly multiracial, there are subcategories, and then every single one of our students who register, those names are turned over to our Native American Program Service Coordinator, and she will follow up to identify any students who did not select Native, but is eligible for services. And then additionally, we'll do some tracking behind the scenes. So they can self-identify as multiracial, but we will still identify them as Native for services as well as funding opportunities.
Follow up on that, just to be clear, we have Native students who go to other districts. Those are not counted in our numbers, right?
Yeah, could you say that one more time?
There's a lot of Native students who go to other districts. They're not counted in our numbers, right?
Any other questions? Okay, Dr. Beeler?
Yes, thank you. I did use up most of my words earlier this evening, but I'm sure many of you will say thank goodness. I did want to acknowledge, though, that yesterday we had anticipated that the state of Pennsylvania would be added to the travel advisory list due to the fact that it's a neighboring state along with Connecticut and New Jersey. Pennsylvania was not added to the travel advisory list. We do have 12 employees who currently reside in Pennsylvania. We had made accommodations and we've been in communication with them to ensure that they are comfortable going back and forth. They had expressed concerns about being stopped at the border because there seems to be a proclivity of our state troopers to stop Pennsylvania plates, but they will be provided with identification cards that identify them as an essential worker in the Salamanca schools, so that if they are pulled over, they'll have that to produce. And that's all I have that's new.
Monitoring where they live in Pennsylvania to see if they should be coming to the school district?
Yes. So one of our concerns has always been adults that travel long distances to come to school to work, essentially. The message that we have sent to them consistently and probably remind them about every 3 to 4 weeks is the basic rules, which are if you are sick in any form whatsoever, headache, it doesn't matter how many symptoms, it doesn't matter if you are sick and it's not a COVID symptom. We just remind them that's why we have sick days. If you are sick or ill or have any symptoms, do not come to school to work. Additionally, we monitor to some extent the surrounding areas so that if there are hotspots that are, so to speak, identified, we will, speak with the individuals that come from that particular area. And we have also made sure that teachers and other staff members realize that attendance is not a concern. We have some of those MOAs that were put in place. Additionally, when a staff member identifies as having a concern, the very first thing that we do is, tell them to go home. We're going to excuse you for a day until we can figure out, what your status is. Our staff has been very, very, very responsive when they have a concern. So when I talked about secondary or even tertiary potential contacts, that's, yesterday I was at a party. The person's husband has been identified as being positive. I didn't have contact with them, but I had contact with their wife. So that would be a secondary contact. In those cases, those people stay home, they get tested. So it's not, we are at least one series removed in our practices from what the county recommends and actually requires. And in some cases, and we do evaluate every single one of these circumstances individually, even if it's a tertiary, if a person is not well, not feeling well, and they're 2 times removed from the potential possible case, they're excused for the day. We'll work with them to get a rapid test, and then they, once we sort of have all of those steps cleared, then they will return to work.
Any other questions for Mark?
Go ahead.
All right, let's move on to the board message. Dale, you want to start?
Yes, I just want to plead with everybody to please keep your guard up, be vigilant. We are in the middle of a public health crisis, pandemic. Anything you can do to keep yourself, your families, other community members safe, it'll go a long way. We do have a nearby school district that I just learned tonight is closed for the next 2 weeks due to positive COVID cases and quarantining. So please be vigilant. Thank you.
Carrie?
You surprised me. You jumped over to me. I thought you were going to keep going around the table. I was going to say the same thing that basically Dale just said, making sure that everybody's still aware, we're in the middle of a crisis. We've seen rising numbers recently. Just in the span of time from our last board meeting to this board meeting, the numbers have gone up. It's getting worse before it gets better. And honestly, I was pretty shocked to hear that we're talking about bringing kids back. It's not time. I just need to think that we need to, like Bob mentioned, slow down, look at all the facts, and evaluate. Really, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Is we need to stay vigilant. We need to make sure that our community, our staff, our students, everybody's staying vigilant with this. Wash your damn hands, use sanitizer, things like that. It's pretty simple, common sense stuff, but I think we've gotten away from it. Everybody's gotten a little complacent or even a little antsy. People want to get back to normal. People want to do normal things. People want to just not wear a mask. It's still here, and it's showing its ugly teeth again. So really, that's what I wanted to mention tonight. Other than that, to our staff, keep up the great work. Keep pushing, keep trying to reach these kids. Do what you can. And on the back end of things, we'll do all we can to support you. That's all I got.
Brad?
Just wanted to say thank you for all the gifts I got in front of me here. Appreciate that. And that's all I have for tonight.
You have to unmute Barb, or is she got to unmute herself?
There, I think I got
Did
it.
it. Yay.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that I am on self-quarantine this evening, following all the guidelines. I went to Chicago to meet my newest grandchild, and we were very careful when we were there, and we didn't do anything except stay at their condo, and they're both working from home. So pretty confident I didn't have any exposure, but I'm on quarantine until Friday, and the health department has been wonderful about checking on us every day and making sure if we need anything, they would get it for us. Not that hard to do. We're anxious to get out and be able to go on walks at least, but we're following it to the letter. I also want to thank everyone for the gifts. It's nice to be appreciated. In addition, I thank my fellow board members for their service to the school board. And I also have to agree about the COVID concerns because it seems like there's new symptoms all the time. And there's something now called long haul COVID that some people get, and they just have ongoing symptoms for a very long time. So we have to be very careful because it's a horrible disease. And that's it.
Meg?
Like to echo what many people have already said. Wash your hands, stay home when possible, really important. You can still support your local restaurants by getting takeout, so eating at restaurants, going to bars, really dangerous. So are, institutions like here, schools. I mean, I share Carrie's concerns with that. Also, as a social scientist, just to let all of you know that you should look to history, look at the 1918, pandemic. The second wave was way worse than the first wave, and it hit late fall, early winter. So, just learn from that, stay vigilant on it. I think people are getting really complacent with it, and it's killing people, and it has a long-term effect, health effect for people who survive. So on a happier note, would like to recognize too the National School Bus Safety Week and thank our transportation department, our school bus drivers, the folks who work on our school buses. I love seeing them still run in the community, to drop things off and to pick up kiddos who are on our campuses. Really appreciate all the people who are working there. I'm also really excited to see the information that comes from that newly formed, committee. Not only helping us to understand what issues we need to fix now, but also what is working that maybe we implemented now that we would have never dreamed of doing without COVID. I know we've had some of those conversations before, but I'm hearing kind of mixed things from parents. I'm hearing some parents who are really frustrated with e-learning, and I'm hearing from parents who really love the e-learning and their kids are thriving in ways that they didn't when they were on our campuses. So, really looking at that and expanding our e-learning opportunities. Just anecdotally, I kind of wish I could do the e-learning all the way through because I'm at a kindergarten level right now with my kiddo and really understanding the foundation of that dreaded Common Core math, which I always defend, but it is a different way. I didn't learn that type of math, but it's the way that mathematicians know math, and people who are good at math usually spent money to go away to math camps to learn so that when they hit calculus, they did well. And people like me who didn't have that opportunity floundered in pre-calc. And I'm really so interested in that foundation there and learning that. And I would have no idea about those things if Gloria was just coming home with worksheets. I would be like every other parent just going, what is this? But now there's all these videos that are online, through our e-learning software that I can watch and understand how it's being taught, which helps me reinforce it in the home. So, those are some of the things I'd like to see continued, after we get through this. I think that we're discovering, new ways of learning and new ways of helping our kiddos. So I thank you. It's a long way of saying thank you to everyone who's serving on that committee, and I'm really looking forward to the data. And that's it.
Again, I'm going to reinforce what everybody said here today, but wear your masks. That's probably one of the biggest things that we can do to help stop the spread of this terrible disease. I carry my little sanitizer with me in my purse. I have one in the car. Of course, it's all around the house. But make sure you're using sanitizer, washing your hands. Just those common things that we can do, and make sure your kids are doing it. Again, I agree with everything that Carrie says, and Megan and the rest of the board too. We're all here to make sure that our kids are safe when they come back to school. We don't want to rush into anything. We want to bring them back. We want to bring them back safely. And I know Mark and Bob, Karen, everybody here feels the same way. Nobody wants to rush into anything, but you still want to bring kids back when you can. It's just that. We're in that dilemma. I do want to thank everybody for the presence. It's nice to be recognized. Sometimes it is a thankless job when you try to do something and you're trying to do the best, but you don't always make people happy. But I think I speak for everybody on the board when I say that we're always here trying to do the best for our kids and our community members and our staff. And we do appreciate everybody. And I thank everybody for the wonderful gifts. Again, I want to shout out to all the parents too that are working with their kids at home after hours on the weekends, trying to make sure that their assignments are caught up and trying to make sure that all of their assignments are turned in. You know, for the parents that are concerned about their kids' grades that are being low, because they want to see their kids succeed. And I think we have a lot of parents out there that feel that way. And again, please make sure that you're contacting the schools if you have any questions or concerns about your computers, about your teachers, about the programs, any concerns that you have at all, whether it's how to get lunch, how to log in, how do I find out my kids' grades? You know, there's no stupid question, and we're here to help the parents make sure that their kids are as successful as possible. So please, if you're not sure how to reach out, you can always email any of the board members, any of the principals, any teachers that you know. Anybody will be glad to try to help you get in contact with the right person to get the information that you need or to help your child succeed. That's all I have.
Okay, just a couple of housekeeping items. Some good news to share. We have a few more student activities and clubs that will be coming online, including some virtual drama productions and performances. Ski Club has submitted their safety plan and their transportation plan, which is what we were working on. I've spoken with the OM Odyssey of the Mind advisor, Ms. McClure. That will be coming online, and I know there will be a few other clubs and activities coming online, all following our safety protocols and procedures to keep kids safe. Some will be virtual, like drama. Some will be public, outdoor, like Ski Club, once it snows. I think it's from a wellness perspective, we do need to be mindful that our students are social creatures and they really are missing school. Something some of the students I couldn't have imagined would have said a year ago, but they do miss us, and we want to make sure that everyone is safe. Later on in the agenda, section 8, you'll notice that we are appointing Mrs. Brown as a data privacy officer. This is a required position that we have to have with some regulatory changes in the state. With Mr. Miller's transitioning, we wanted to make sure that we didn't have a gap in that appointment. And then at the next board meeting, we anticipate appointing Mrs. Brown as the interim director for technology. We're working out some of the logistical details with the Teachers Association and the Administrators Association to make sure that everyone is aware of the transition and the leave of absence. So that will be coming soon to a theater near you at our next board meeting. Next board meeting also, we will have a presentation from our homeschool liaisons about some continued outreach and some professional development that they participated in as part of the virtual NIEA conference that was held about 2 weeks or so ago. And on November 13th and 14th, we have a confirmed date. We're working out the logistics and the schedule for the board retreat. Some of the anticipated topics will include diversity and equity, future planning for the district, kind of a la strategic planning, tabletop roundtable discussions, also known as Festivus, budget discussions, and as crazy as this sounds for the 21-22 school year, that just is really unsettling, but we have to do it. And I'm sure there will be a few other topics and a few other activities planned for those those events, and those details will be forthcoming. I would also like to acknowledge and recognize that later in the agenda, also under personnel, we are accepting the retirement of Kathy Schaefer, a longtime reading teacher with nearly 30 years experience in our district, who has announced her pending retirement in the coming months. She will be done shortly, using up some of her time. In the course of her career in Salamanca, Kathy has served hundreds of students in a remedial reading and assistive instructional support role. And I think it's safe to say that I think we know that I value the level of effectiveness and commitment of our reading teachers. They are instrumental in the success of some of our younger students. And I want to thank Kathy for her nearly 30 years of experience, her commitment to our students, and her tireless effort to help some of our more needier students find their niche and thrive and grow. We will miss her, and I think I speak for the district, and we wish her all the best in her retirement. The last piece, and I've wrestled with whether or not I was going to say this, but I think in light of the conversation about COVID, I think it's important to note. Last week, Wednesday, at approximately 2:00, when we found out that we had a very real and potential first-person contact, actually 2 first-person contacts with a student and a member of our staff. At about 2:00, when we found that out, our administrative team met. We met with our safety director. We'd consulted with the health department. We had our transportation, our food service. We, in all honesty, as a drill, not having any advanced knowledge, at least with snow days, we can see the weather 2 and 3 days out. We know when something's going to happen. With the virus and being told at approximately 2:00, by about 2:25, 2:30, we were ready to go and ready to roll with notifying our community, notifying our staff, making sure that our staff was made aware so that they can take their devices home to continue e-learning and e-instruction in a remote capacity. We contacted BOCES. We contacted our special education providers throughout the region and let them know what was going to happen. We talked with BOCES about our vocational kids. We talked with the section about athletics and some of our students that were competing or would have been competing that Thursday and Friday and over the weekend. I'm exceptionally proud of our staff because they dropped what they needed to do and they didn't think. It was muscle memory. And I think that's one of the reasons why we pivoted immediately to a remote capacity for all of our students without a whole lot of effort. That doesn't happen by accident. We've done tabletop discussions, we've done drills, we've done our communications plan, we've talked about what if, we talked about who do we need to contact, how do we need to contact them. That said, I can't sit here and tell you we were perfect. As soon as we transitioned and made that call, we were already debriefing about what can we do better for the next time. And I think if you look at the quality and the responses on social media for how we handled that, nobody wanted to be e-learning, but we had to do it safely. And I will tell you with 100% commitment to the board and to the community, as Mark has said on a number of occasions and will continue to say, if we can't do it safely, we're not going to do it, period. It's not even a point of discussion. And that's why making that decision last week, Wednesday, I think Mark and Karen can attest, literally took about 20 seconds. Once we had the facts verified of 2 first-person confirmed contacts, we were done and we were moving on and implementing the game plan. I think that speaks highly of our team. It speaks highly of our staff, and it speaks highly of our district. And I think we can be proud of that. And I'm eternally grateful for the staff that we have and for the board for allowing us to have those type of staff and personnel. It makes a difference to help keep everyone safe, well, and allow us to keep instruction also front and center too. So thank you very much.
Let's move on to our consent agenda. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Who seconded that? Dale. Okay, motion by Meg, second by Dale. Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Does Barb give a thumbs up here? Or I don't see her. Oh, yep, thumbs up. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. There's no old business. Under new business, our capital project change orders. We need a motion to approve the change orders. Motion by Brad, second by Sue. Are there any questions on any of the change orders? All in favor? Aye. Thumbs up by Barb. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. Next is our personnel consent agenda. We need a motion to approve the personnel consent agenda. Motion by Dale. Second by Meg. Are there any questions?
Just one quick clarification with regard to Mrs. Schaefer's resignation for retirement. I just want to make sure that we have the correct date. Her last day of work on the books will be the 29th. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna change that effective date to 1/29/21. Okay, are we okay with the changes? All right, then. So we have a motion by Dale, second by Meg. All in favor? Aye. Thumbs up by Barb. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. And is Kathy on or no?
I did not see her on.
Okay.
But we do have Mrs. Brown.
We
here.
do
It's our
have
new
Mrs.
data
Brown
privacy
here.
officer.
Yay.
All of that
Congratulations.
excitement for Marcy. Congratulations.
Item 9 is our board information and reports. We have our newsletter, our personnel instruction and service committee meeting minutes, our upcoming events. We have the high school parent teacher conferences, so they're going to be doing them zooming in and out virtually. That'll be exciting. I want to see how that goes. And then the November 5th is our Indigenous Policy and Procedures. Our next Board of Education, we got a retreat on the 13th and the 14th. I would like to remind everybody to please go out and vote. It's very important. Your voice matters. Please don't think that votes don't matter, because they do. So please take the time to go out and vote. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we need a motion to go into executive session
For personnel.
for personnel. Sorry. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Motion by Sue, second by Carrie. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Barb's thumbs up. Abstain. Motion carried. And we do not anticipate coming out. Thank you. Oh, I mean, we'll come out of session. We do not.
No more action.
No more
tonight.
actions. I'm sorry. Coming out.